Who is that person? Ni nani mwenye akikualika kwake, utafanya bidii uwe kwake. Okay? Even if you had plans from a few weeks ago, you're like, you know what? This one, I have to go. Right? We all have a friend like that, yes? Everyone has a friend like that? Okay. Here's my question. That was a bit of background. Here's my question. What makes us, if we have that kind of a person, what makes us want to go to that person when the invite comes? Okay? What is the thing? What is the thing in your heart that goes, you know what, I have to go? What are the things that drive that? And I want some answers. Give me an answer or answer somebody. What is it when you get an invite like that, you say, I have to go? Give me an answer. Somebody. Come on, someone must have an answer. Why is it then when there are some invites when they come, you're like, that one I'll reply next week. And then there are some when they come, you're like, I have to reply to this one now. So what is it that makes us do that? Give me an answer, somebody. Yes, Martin, good. If they are unwell. If they are unwell and you want to go and condole with them?
They make me feel welcome.
They make you feel welcome. Very good. Make you feel welcome. Yes, Nyasha.
They cook good food.
Good. That is where my question was going, okay? Trust it to come from. They cook good food, okay? When someone says, and especially, I'm glad it came from a man. I think we all think like this, if we're honest. If they're unwell and you want to make sure that, you've not seen them for a while, fine. If they make you feel really welcome and you're like, wow, I love being in this place and it's really nice. But fundamentally, I think underneath that kind of welcome is what is going to be put on the table, right? What is going to be put on the table? Right? That's a really big one, okay? If you go somewhere and the food is good and the food is plenty, okay? Iko kwa wingi, we're happy, right? We're glad. I saw a quote this week that captures this nicely. It said, this was someone writing on social media somewhere. Here are 3 ways, it said, to my heart. 3 ways. To buy me food, to make me food, or to be food. Okay? We all love it. If you're being welcome, you're being treated nicely, we love it. Okay, now, that was all background. With that in your minds, please take your Bibles for our reading the complement. Turn to Genesis chapter 18. We've had this reading before, but listen to how Abraham is described in this reading, okay? And the kind of hospitality, welcome, to use the word we just had, he gives. Genesis chapter 18 to read, just verses 1 to 8, and then a few words to prepare us for our meeting. Genesis chapter 18, if you've got it with you. I want to read just verse 1 through to 8. And please listen. We've had this reading even last week. Listen to how Abraham hosts his guests. Listen to how he is kind to those who come to his home. Genesis 18, verse 1. And the Lord appeared to him, that is to Abraham, by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them and bowed himself to the earth and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. And after that, you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, do as you have said. And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate. This is the word of the Lord. I hope you'll have noticed and listened there as you heard, especially from verse 4, what we have described there when Abraham has these guests is truly a picture of the 2 things I want to mention today that I'll come to. Hospitality on one side and generosity on the other. Those are the things I want to talk about today. Hospitality, generosity. What is hospitality? It is the art The practice of making people feel at home. Mrs. Miner just said it a minute ago, feel welcome. Oh, I love to be here. Okay, it is a practice of making people feel at home, feel welcome. And one way you do that, or you display that, to use the other word, is by being generous. Hospitality, welcoming, generosity, not holding back with the things God has given you. Being willing to give and share what God has blessed you with. How does hospitality come through? Go back to verse 4 of our reading. Okay, look back at verse 4. See what Abraham does. Little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under a tree. First thing, he wants to welcome them. He says, come in, don't pass me by. Okay, we just read it from the beginning. He sees these guests appear, and instead of just saying, hi, how are you? Good journey. He says, don't just pass, karibu, welcome. I want you to come. Don't go to the next house. I want you in my place. And he does it without hesitation, without complaining. Sometimes a neighbor might come to your house, and you get the feeling they might want to stay, but you're like, I wish they would go. Right? If we're honest, you're like, are they going to really stay? They look like they're standing a bit longer. Should I say karibu? But you don't really mean it, if we're honest. Okay? Abraham is not like that. He's quick. He says, please come. Don't pass me by. I want you to stay in here. Right? And after inviting them, he then goes on and says, I see now you've rested. Now let me offer you some food, just like we do. Right? It's exactly like we do. When someone comes in, you want to make sure they're rested. Katie Chini, you look like they've calmed down. Now can I offer you something to eat? And he does that. Okay, look again at verse 4 again. Let a little water be brought. Wash your feet. Rest yourselves. Tulia kwanza, be calm. While I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. And then after that, after you've eaten from me, you can pass on. You may go on. Right? Now, very interestingly, unlike most of us, I think most Kenyans I've noticed, unlike most of us, these are visitors, when they're told, we bring you some food, they agree very quickly, no hesitation. Okay? Most Kenyans, I don't know whether it's just me and my experience, you offer them and they say, I'm not that hungry. Or don't stress too much. Kumbe, they are starving to death. Right? Like, once the food is brought, you're like, they eat the whole thing and more. And you're like, Allah, you said a minute ago you are not that hungry. You didn't really want it. Oh, don't worry. Just leave it. Kumbe, they're hungry. These guys, look at what they say. Look at end of verse 5. Yeah. So Abraham says, can I bring you something since you have come to your servant? End of verse 5. So they said, do as you have said. No hesitation. You ask for food, I'll take it. Right? We'll receive your hospitality. Thank you very much. They don't hide. Food is offered and they say, yes, do as you've said. And it is here we come to the other side of the equation. Hospitality on one side and then generosity. Notice what Abraham does. He doesn't give his guests like one plate full and a little bit extra. No, he gives them enough food to feed many families. Did you notice? Look again. Okay, look with me at verse 6. Look at what Abraham offers the guests. So, invitation, please don't pass. Sit down, I want to bring you some food. Yes. He then goes and makes it. Verse 6, what does he do? While I bring a morsel, verse 6, and Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said, quick, haraka, 3 seahs of fine flour. Now, if you've got one of these church Bibles, after the word seahs, there's a small number. Can you notice it? Look what it is. And you need to go to the bottom of the page, a footnote, and then look what it says. A seah, so 1 seah, was about 7 quarts or 7 liters. Right? 7 liters. That might equate to about 7,000 grams. Right? And he gets 3 of those. He says to Sarah, make 3, so 21. You know, one of the unga for chapati is 2 kilos. We're looking at 10 of those. Right? I don't know how many chapatis those would be, basically, if you're making it. He's not making he's not just making enough that they will, washiba tu kidogo. There'll be plenty of food. It'll be filled with food. Okay? 3 seahs, that's the first thing he does. Loads of, in today's terms, lots of chapati. Let's see what else. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a whole calf. He didn't just go to the butcher and say, give me half a kilo of meat. A whole mbuzi, a whole calf. Let's have that one barbecued or whatever. Then he took curds. If this was Kalenjin land, we'll say murusik. Okay? Took curds and milk, and then he gave it to his guests. So hospitality, welcome. On the other side, generosity, abundance. He's not just giving a tiny bit. He's giving and giving and giving. Right? So I want, just having given that simple introduction, where I want to now apply this to us today. Okay, what we have right here with Abraham is a feast. Abraham does not hold back. Welcome, hospitality, generosity when he comes to host his people. And so I want to conclude, as it were, by pointing to those two things as we prepare for our meeting. Hospitality, making people feel welcome, and generosity, giving with a spirit that does not hold back. How hospitable, challenge, how hospitable have you been this past year? We're in November, we're coming to the end. How hospitable have you been this past year? Okay, who have you invited into your world, into your home this past year? Right? Who has, let's push it a bit further. Who has sat on your sofas or your chairs at home, smelt your cooking and eaten at your table this year? And by the way, usually with Kenyans, we try to think, if I've got to have people sitting, it's got to be a big spread. No, even just smelling that cup of tea. Who has done that this year? Right? The New Testament makes it very clear that believers should show hospitality to each other. Okay, that's where it should start. Okay, to the church, and then it extends to others, naturally. Okay, so who here, as you look around, have you had over to your home this year? Hospitality. And by the way, even you people, watoto hapa, and the youth, even you young people, you can actually be hospitable. Because you might think, well, the house is not mine, I don't know. Fine. But there are ways in which young people can actually be hospitable. For example, when people come to your home, not to begrudge and be angry with them. Right? Not to be like, oh, our home is being taken up again. Or to not be cheerful when you're asked to help. Or to, when the food is put at the table, you're kind of unhappy. Lakini chakula ikuje. You're the ones who want to be the first to eat, ignoring the others. Right? Or you wait. Immediately, you're there a bit grumpy, you're on your phone. Once the visitors leave, you're like, what's left over? We want to eat it. Me first again. Right? In my travels, I met a family in the States in my recent travels. Beautiful. They had a code word, especially for how they would deal with visitors. So this family, the surname is Jeffrey, and they would have a code JHB. When the food is put on the table and it looks nice, Jeffries, our family, hold back. Let the other people eat first, okay? Don't be the one who's like, give me that chicken. Oh, I don't want to know about the other people. And then you eat and like, hold back. Love your neighbors as you love those who've come. So even little people, you here, young people, watoto hapa, you can be hospitable. You can make people, like we're hearing, feel welcome. Like, wow, talk to them, be friendly, help your parents, until people are like, wow, I love being in this space, right? I want to challenge us as a church, which is very diverse, so many different backgrounds, different nations, different tribes. I want to encourage us to increase in our hospitality. Do not be like the Pharisees, the reading that Nyasha read from the Gospels, who are the kind of people who invited people home, but people exactly like them. That's who they invited. People like them, same background, same education level, same income. Those are the people they invited, not others, right? And that's why when the woman from the street comes in, we're told in the reading, they were shocked. How can Jesus, how is it that Jesus is spending time with this person? No. We should be like Jesus does to us. He invites us. He makes us his family. He welcomes us to his table, the Lord's Supper. Not because we're like him, but because of his great love for sinners. Because of his great love for sinners. Jesus is a truly hospitable one. Right? And we model that gospel, that grace. We display the love when we're hospitable to our brethren, to each other, and then to the world out there. Secondly, and even more briefly, we model the gospel not just by being hospitable, but by also being generous with what God has given to me. And I want you to listen to me carefully. I've already said this, but I want to say it again. Hospitality and generosity is not something that only, quote unquote, the rich should do. I sometimes get that feeling, even in this congregation, sadly, that sometimes we think, mambo ya kuwa, to give, generosity, or that's for other people, not for us. No. Hospitality, generosity is not limited to a certain set of people. Okay? It's not just for those who we think have money. Okay? Someone might tell me later, look at the Abraham story. Well, he was rich. Fine. He gives from that, but hospitality is not limited to just a certain class of believer. Let's go through the fruits of the Spirit. Fruits of the Spirit, number one is what? Love. And then second one is which one? Joy. Then then, and then, let's stop there. Okay, fruit number 1, love, which we show by giving without holding back. Okay, love is thinking primarily of the other, not me, but the other person. Okay, that is fruit number 1. Fruit number 5 is kindness, which is to give, when you do give, with a generous heart. Okay, with a heart that says, I want to bless you. Not, I don't know whether you've seen, if your child their birthday and they get a gift, say it's sweets. I don't know. They take the sweets and then they're told by their parent to be generous. Now on a parent heavy, they just go 1 and then they're looking and they're so guarded. Okay, how many? Like you can have a half maybe. Okay, giving, but they're not giving with a generous heart. They're like, oh, I want to make sure, right? That is not how the believer should be. Okay, we're to cultivate love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Give with a generous heart. Okay, if God has given you something, and He has to all of us, then you can afford to be generous. Allow me to be direct as I can, because I had this quote. I've had someone saying this over here, okay? No one here, I want to challenge us, no one here should think that generosity is just for those who drive cars. I've had that comment said, Otto Magari. No, it's for all of us, right? It is generous, it is for all, it's for everyone. Have you been generous this year, including, can I say it, with your money? Okay, as we grow as a church, we've not really talked about it that much here, hardly ever, but as we grow as a church with needs, think of venue, we will all be required to be generous. And you know what the foundation to being generous is? It is remembering how Christ has been generous to us. Jesus did not save us because we were good. He did not. Okay? He saved us because He was kind and abundantly generous. Jesus didn't promise us eternal life because I'll give you eternal life because you can pay me back. You cannot pay it back, right? He gave it to us because He has a kind heart and loves to give, here's a phrase, more than you could ever ask or imagine. He's generous, okay? And the lady in the gospel reading understood that point. That's why she doesn't care what people think. That lady comes into the room, people are mocking her, they're laughing at her. She's willing to give her perfume, expensive, and even use her hair, embarrass herself. She's like, I'm happy to give because of the King and what He has done for me. You receive grace, and you're like, I want to give grace back. When we remember that love, which we could not ever repay, it stirs us to give generously, our money, yes, but also our time, our talents, actually, ultimately, ourselves. And so, coming up to the meeting, as we approach our 3rd birthday in about, 25 days thereabout, let us be hospitable like Christ. That's my challenge to you. Who have you had around? And encourage and work on that. And let us abound in generosity like Christ has shown us.